Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. I'm looking forward to talking to Hedy Popson. Hedy, it's great to connect with you. You're the president of Production Plus, full service agency that provides talent in the automotive live events, trade show, product demonstration, and retail merchandising arenas. You and I spoke before the pandemic happened, and I'm excited to have you back on the show because travel and live events are back. And where I thought we could dive in is really talking about, on the show a lot, we talk about relationship capital and how to build relationship capital. And one of the things that I think that sometimes gets overlooked is the growth of connection capital. And these last couple of years have been difficult to connect over Zoom, over Teams, over a conference call. And now that travel and live events are back, Think Community, we're going to talk a lot today about connection capital. Can you talk a little bit, Hedy, about how you're seeing that connection capital come back with the live events and what companies are doing?
Yeah, it's interesting. We probably have a very unique lens on this as a people company because we are not selling, anything but connecting people and brands.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, I think, to see, not just the client's request and people want to get back out there and get in front of consumers or attendees, but just, I think, client communication in general, inter-team communication, everything we're doing as companies. I like to go back to that kind of Simon Sinek start with why.
Yeah.
And I think we forget sometimes the why is all about connection.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. You're connecting people and brands. And I think today more than ever, it's important to connect with the consumer in a very clear way, connect with the heart of the consumer, mm-hmm. and connect consistently with the consumer. And so talk a little bit about how you and your company really see the consistency of connection when it comes to people and brand.
I think that having the messaging, we're inundated right now by instant gratification, I like to say. So anywhere we want to get a message, anywhere we want to get a piece of information, we can get that as a consumer, ourselves, even those that are running companies. What the special, unique piece is, how do we take all of that, kind of technical jargon and information overload and get in front of people and actually reconnect in a way that matters to them? Mm-hmm. Because even when we're looking at, an auto show display and a consumer walks in, one consumer might be interested in, how the vehicle is going to save them money or time, and another one might be interested in how safe the vehicle is. And so I think part of that connection, you can't build connection unless you build rapport. You can't build rapport unless you have an awareness. So it all goes back down to, kind of reading a room and being the type of person that can go in and connect, to an introvert, to an extrovert, to whatever that might mean to anybody. But advertising is only as good as the connection.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about that because you are spearheading a lot of the stuff with the Detroit Auto Show, which used to be in January and now it's in September of, it's starting now. And,
right.
and, how are they looking at it from a new lens? I mean, the auto show here in Detroit has been pretty much the same for the last, I don't even know how many years / decades. And now it has a completely new face. And so talk a little bit about why they're doing that. I would imagine it also has to do in a post-COVID world, but also the people who are attending, the consumer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think, listen, my first auto show, I used to work as a product specialist on the floor as a junior in college. So my first auto show was 1989. And I watched the launch of the Lexus brand and the Infiniti brand. And, all of that excitement that kind of drove around Detroit Motor City. My dad was in the automotive industry as a mechanical engineer his entire life. And Detroit used to be the place where journalists, attendees, everybody came to watch every single vehicle launch.
Yeah.
Post-COVID world, there's things have totally changed, and there are different ways to obviously make an announcement on a new vehicle, and every manufacturer has their own platform or how they see that happening. And so this buzz for a while has been, auto shows are dead. And I think what's really awesome about the past 48 hours, so we're kind of talking in real time, is the Detroit Auto Show reinvented itself. I mean, it did the grandest pivot that I've seen from something that was, very cyclical and very regular. First of all, you're changing the time frame. Now, Detroiters are going to go to the auto show whether you're in January or whether you're in September, but it just makes it a much more robust experience
Yeah.
when we can actually take vehicles outside and have experiential outside. So you're kind of marrying two different platforms. And then you have journalists that are coming, but you also have local journalists and industry people and reports. So far we've had 4 auto shows already happen in the country in the past week. So we've had Raleigh, Kansas City, we've had Tampa, we've had Detroit, and all 4 shows for every brand we're working with, we're getting call for extra help. There were so many people. Nobody anticipated this much traffic. So I think for journalists, they can they latch onto buzzwords and they want to say the auto show is dead. I don't know that we'll ever see one show where, 25 manufacturers launch a new vehicle, but I think the auto show is very much alive. In fact, it's reimagined and realived. And it's really exciting to see people partake in this.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love everything that you're talking about. I love that they're reinventing themselves, and I think everybody needs to reinvent themselves. Howard Schultz, I was just watching him on MSNBC this week, and he's talking about how Starbucks is completely reinventing themselves because they believe, and he was quoted at saying that the Starbucks of today was built for a different era. Mm-hmm. And so they're building it now more for the Gen Zs and more for the millennials and more for 70% of their drinks are actually cold brew, which is something they weren't necessarily predicting. A lot can be found if anybody wants to Google that. But even a company, when I think people hear the auto show, Starbucks, everybody is thinking about how they need to reinvent themselves. As the president of Production Plus, how did you reinvent yourself when what you do are live events? And then the last 2 years really were, a challenging couple of years for companies doing live events.
Oh, they sure were. Yeah. And I go back to, that week of panic and then using that energy. You have 2 choices in those situations and people say fight or flight or sink or swim.
Yeah.
During the past 2 years, I've actually elevated in my role to CEO. And part of my challenge has been, and one of the phrases that I always use with my team is we're going to deconstruct to reconstruct. Mm-hmm. So I think from a real fun place, we can all say we're reinventing ourselves or, we've got to make changes. But the truth of the matter is the pandemic is something that has never happened in our lifetime. Yeah. It did force a lot of change, both on the professional and personal sides for everyone's world. And I think for me to really understand what to do and to how we take this approach and connect, how do you connect with people in a world where you can't see people? We really had to look at the way we were doing business and how do we want to continue doing business? So sure, we moved a lot to some virtual platforms. We created some task forces and looked internally at, energetically, how do we want to realign our whole staff? But really, it does go back to not just why you're doing what you're doing, but what you believe in. And believing in this people connection, believing that it would come back. We could have folded the doors, closed the doors like a lot of smaller agencies did, yeah. But we knew that wasn't going to happen. We had a gut feeling that people are always going to want to connect with each other because 42 years of business says people want to talk about things. People don't just want to order things. We all had to order online. How many returns has everybody done? How long were we waiting to get back in and physically touch something, see something? I mean, I probably made more trips to Target during the pandemic because it was essential and open than I had ever, visited before. So
you needed a place to go. All of us did. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Well, I love when you talk about deconstruct to reconstruct, because I think those are things that every company needs to be thinking about in every facet of their business. In the people, the systems, the processes, the forecasting. I see that as a business coach, Hedy, right? All companies are looking at things and are forced to look at things, not just on a yearly basis, but on a weekly basis at some points. So I love everything that you're talking about. All right. Quick speed round. You ready?
Sure.
All right. A book that's had the biggest impact on you as of recently.
Start with Why.
Yeah. So good. Simon Sinek. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And The Infinite Game. All of his work is great.
And his TED Talk.
Yeah. Yeah. His TED Talk is great. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Oh, the quote from Oprah Winfrey: "You are responsible for the energy you bring into a room."
Isn't that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I talk about that because I used to do a time management keynote and training, and I evolved it to time, focus, and energy management.
Oh, I like
because it is, because everyone has a hard time focusing, and you're responsible for the energy that you bring into the room. I love that. Last question, Hedy. For anybody who is trying to figure out how to deconstruct to reconstruct, the first step of that is to
break everything down, and it is painful.
Yeah.
Peel back all the layers and break it all
Yeah.
down, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah. It's
I
great.
make a daily mistake.
Yeah, I love it. Think community. Hedy, it's so good to see you again and see that your business is thriving through and post COVID. Think community. It is, Hedy shared a lot of great things today as far as how to look at our business through, a new lens on a consistent basis. But, deconstruct to reconstruct. Think about what that means to every element of your business as you continue to grow and finish the year and look at your 3-year and 5-year and 10-year projections. We always have to be deconstructing to reconstruct, and we can still keep the through line and the mission and the purpose and our why always can stay the same. It just may evolve in different ways. Hedy, thank you so much. Any last thoughts?
Just the power of people. Everybody remember the power of people and the power of connection.
Yeah, I love it. Connection Capital. Hedy, thanks so much for being on the show. Congratulations on bringing all of your energy to what you're doing for the city of Detroit. As many of you know, I am a Detroiter. I live in Detroit. And, we love the auto show here because it brings a lot of energy and a lot of people and a lot of really positive exposure for the city. And thank you for your part in all of that. Think community. Hedy, how can people connect with you, and who are your ideal clients?
Our ideal clients is anybody that has a message and anybody wants to get that message out there. I'm a Detroiter too. I'm a Michigan State grad, grew up in Detroit. So I love the city. I love what's happening. Productions-plus.com. We're available.
I love it. I love it. Hedy, thanks so much. Think community, if Hedy can help you, please reach out. If I can help you with any of your coaching needs, please reach out to jondwoskin.com. Thanks, Hedy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.